There we go. So Ailie will be presenting next on her recent project, which is right houses.
Thanks very much. When Jen invited me to talk, I think she just liked my pictures actually. So I'm going to tell you about some PPI we did on a project which was funded by the Engineering and Physical Sciences Research Council. It was a big grant, £2 million grant involving 7 universities. And our project was about developing wearable soft robotics for independent living. We wanted to develop some devices in the long term that will help people to walk and go about their daily lives. And we called it, kind of colloquially, the Right Trousers Project. So we had in Bristol the inventors of the wrong trousers, and we wanted everyone to know these ones were going to be the right ones. So this was a kind of early picture of the investigators from all the 7 universities, and I wanted to put it up because Sarah here, Sarah Manns, she was working with me, and it's her work that really I'm going to be presenting and getting the PPI groups together and running them. So our drivers for this project were that there was, there's a lot of people with disability in the UK, and many of them have mobility impairments, and with the ageing population and increasing population, it's projected that it's going to be much greater need in the future. The whole project came from an EPSRC sand pit, which was it was a competition for engineers and people in health to get together in a hotel for a week in the north of England, just off the M6, to think of new ideas and application of new technologies for healthcare, and this is where our project arose. So we had a soft robotics person in our group, and other people who were into control of electronics, and another person who was in functional electrical simulation. We had a whole kind of gamut of people. We've got doctors, a rehabilitation doctor, and me. My background is occupational therapy. So we had a very interdisciplinary group, and I have to say that our idea had to be, it came about by how can we apply what technologies we were interested in to an important problem. So it wasn't stimulated by public involvement at all to start with. We did have at the Ideas Factory lots of talks from people who had disabilities, so there was exposure, but that was in the early part of the week before we were encouraged to develop ideas. So it was quite important for me in this this role, and we had the responsibility for user perceptions to actually make sure that people thought this was a good idea. Well, ask the question. So the project's aim was to develop these soft robotic technologies with very sensitive and sophisticated sensing, actuation, control, and that could eventually be made into completely wearable devices. And we are thinking clothing. Okay, so there's lots of experts in smart materials, getting new materials, experts in how these materials will be fabricated or made in the future. Lots of design and control. We didn't actually have a designer, a kind of clothing designer on board. We had engineers and clinicians. So that was a gap in our team already. But I thought the engineers kind of thought of this problem as a problem of designing artificial muscles. They thought if they could design artificial muscles, they'd have nailed the project. And I think that we showed them it was quite more complicated than that. So we wanted to kind of get people's perspectives from a number of different conditions, and to do this we approached some charities that some we knew and some we didn't to start with, and Sarah wrote to a lot. So we were looking at local stroke charities, Bristol After Stroke, Stroke Association, Different Strokes. We're looking at people who are interested in older people's care. So we approached the Ailie Society in Bristol and some care homes. we were interested also, although you might think it's odd to make trousers for people without a leg, we were interested in this technology for better prostheses too. So we approached the kind of Limbless Association and a group of cycling amputees and limbless veterans, as well as a carer support centre. So there's a lot of letters went out to various charities, a lot of kind of abstracts and short pieces for their newsletters so that we could get them interested and see if we could gather some people who'd be willing to come and talk to us. And it worked very well. So we held our focus groups, PPI groups, if you like, in Bristol Robotics Laboratory, and we have at UWE and shared with University of Bristol a very large Bristol Robotics lab. And I think that was a really important place to hold this, because we were talking about something that it doesn't exist. It's quite hard to imagine it might exist. To me, I've spent the first half of this project thinking I was involved in The Emperor's New Clothes, which is a story about lots of people working and pretending they're coming up with something. It seems so fantastic to me, because as a therapist, we're used to working with what we have. We're not used to thinking that in 20 years' time we'll all wear something that will help us to walk. We're really not used to thinking ahead like that. And engineers do that quite well all the time. So there's a meeting of minds. And having the group in the lab and giving the people who came to the groups a tour of the lab helped them to promote that mindset, really, that things they don't know about are quite possible. And I think it was a draw because people want to see what's happening in that lab. So we also we ran the lab. I was looking at your tips and I was quite going check. I was quite pleased. We did do as you recommended. So we did pay people for coming. We did tell them that we would be paying for their travel costs. We arranged parking. I arranged for wheelchairs for those who couldn't walk. We kind of we did what we could to make it work for them when they came. And some people came with their family members, and some people came alone. Anyway, we had at the group we had some technology to demonstrate, some new materials for people to feel. They weren't materials that were being applied to our particular purpose at the moment, but to actually feel new things rather than passing around bits of cotton or nylon or things we use now. They had to think that clothing might be different in the future. The events were attended by not only our visiting people, but by the research team and their postdocs. So engineers were there, clinicians were there to hear firsthand and to question the people who came. And the people who came could ask those engineers, do you really think that's going to be possible? So it was definitely a two-way thing. And we had an artist who captured an accessible commentary of the conversation, and she was great. I believe it's called scribing, this kind of commentary in little pictures. And so she was scribbling furiously as the conversation went on, and at the end we were able to recap by looking at her pictures at the end of the meeting. And it made it fun, it made it more light-hearted too, so it's good. So we had a it was a bit like a semi-structured interview schedule. We had some headings that we wanted to kind of focus on, but the conversation was allowed to go how people wanted it to. And then we were able to kind of look at the end and at the kind of themes or topics that people had thought were important to consider. So we started off by asking people if they used any technology at the moment. And technology is a funny word, isn't it? Because in health, technology can be a walking stick, which isn't probably being used since Stone Age times. But and yet technology can be these things we're going to do. So And we asked about how happy they were with the things they were using at the moment, and really whether they would like to have clothing that helped walk. We asked them about what would be important in that clothing, and resoundingly and very often it came, well, there's no good inventing these things if I can't get them on, which is very obvious. And as an occupational therapist, I could have told the team that, but the team would not listen to me only. It made it more important to hear the voices of people that come. And if you think about something that's got to act as an artificial muscle in something you're wearing, it's going to be close to the skin, which means that it's going to be tighter to put on and off. So that has to be got around as well. We asked about what they wanted to achieve with these things. So they wanted to walk faster, they wanted to be able to cross the road in time, they wanted to be able to sit to stand more easily, and they wanted to be able to stand up to do things without falling over. What were they worried about? Well, they were worried about these things breaking down in the street when they got out, or unreliability. What would happen when they went to the airport? Would they set all the alarms off? Would it stop them from falling with these things? So there are all sorts, a whole range of needs that were specified from this exercise. And a lot of there were tensions as well in of course, different people wanting different things. So one gentleman said, well, I wouldn't want it to look like a pair of tights, I don't want to wear a pair of tights. So conventions in clothing for different people. Some people wanted different clothing for different events like we have now. I'm going to go to a wedding, I don't want to look like I'm just running a marathon at the same time, for example. It was helpful to have the family there as well, because they would indicate what was important for them, having to kind of look after any gear that we were going to produce. And we had one person who worked in a nursing home, and they pointed out the difficulties of clothing in nursing homes, that you can go to the wash now and don't come back. So the engineers got a whole range of ideas about what was important and what was not going to work for them. This is my way of kind of summarising what the conversation was. Because I'm an occupational therapist, we think in these terms of the person, the environment, and the occupational and the context. So it was just a convenient way to summarise that. We did ask about, I put together a little questionnaire for the engineers to find out, actually, had we achieved what we wanted to, and what did they learn from this. And these are a couple of quotes. So we have to demonstrate a solution for each of the challenges. They won't necessarily be available in one garment, because requirements vary so much from person to person. Another one, a large number of possible devices could be developed that could improve the lives of people with reduced mobility, and particularly with lower power devices, which could guide and stiffen, which, because of the low power requirements, could be thinner, lighter, and more comfortable. So we came to the conclusion it might be more possible to give a little bit of help to help people, rather than aiming to have trousers that will actually walk for you, pull you up into a chair. We used the information we got from the focus groups to and employed a designer, a textiles designer, to produce this visualisation of what trousers of the future could look like. And this has been really useful to enable us to talk to others now about what we're trying to do and what we envisage we're going for in the future. And it included things like a kind of band that would could be air injected to expand. So if you imagine, these kind of bands could happen throughout the clothing, so it wouldn't be so tight to get off and on. It could expand, and then you could put it on, and then it could tighten and shrink wrap trousers. And then if you needed to to the toilet quickly, they could also expand again. Things like that were included, and we also had some some demonstrators of different components of tasks that we put together for an exhibition. So last year we had our Trousers Fest exhibition, and we invited people back who'd attended our initial PPI group to show them the technologies. Now, none of these technologies are ready in a wearable form yet, but they were just showing people the kind of materials or the kind of more the technologies that can be used perhaps to help support them or help them undress. And we had a great afternoon actually, lots of nice comments. And we've also got a website with information on, including the information we got from our PPI, original PPI, and we put out newsletters very regularly through the project. This project's finished now, but we have secured some more money for some follow-on work, and that's to take the most ready technologies and develop prototypes which we can try with people and see if they're going to be helpful, while still working on the less ready technologies, which are going to be the most likely to be all our clothes in the future. We have clinical partners in the new project. We have business partners, and I've spent the afternoon talking to somebody who's going to be a user partner for us, and we're still looking for someone else. And this will be. We're now at a stage where we can actually have more iterative meetings and more iterative design through the next project. So I hope that's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Ailie. I'm just quite conscious of time, so if anyone does have any questions, please feel free to email CAHPR and we can pass it on to Ailie. Thank you very much.